Welcome to qnawire.
So we're trying to move aluminum cylinders from the ground to a loading dock, and we use a wooden ramp here. So here's the ground, here's the loading dock, here's the ramp. And we make it such that it is 37 degrees with the horizontal, and has a length of 6 meters. The mass of this aluminum cylinder is, on an aluminum cylinder, is 460 kilograms. It has a radius of 0.3 meters, and we have a static coefficient of friction of 0.12, so it's pretty slippery here. And we apply a load here. And we want to see, well, first of all, we want to see what is the maximum acceleration that we can get if we, or what is the maximum force we can use to pull on these things at their center without causing them to slip. Okay? And then we want to figure out what would be the maximum acceleration and then how long it would take to get up this ramp under that condition. So we have a free body diagram here. So we have the force applied, the weight, the normal force, and then the friction force. And now what's happening here is this friction force has a maximum value that it can attain. And that is the static coefficient of friction times the normal force. Now if we force balance perpendicular to the ramp, we get N equals W cosine theta. Parallel to the ramp, we get F max. Okay, so that would be the maximum we could get here. And, well, let's actually say that is not F max yet. Let's actually say that that's not F max yet, because we haven't actually substituted in what the friction force is. So we have F minus friction force minus the component of weight along the ramp equals the mass times acceleration. Just rearranging that, and now this is F max because we substituted in for the friction force here. So this would be the maximum friction force we can have. Just doing a little algebra here. Now, if we do a moment balance about the center of mass here, you can see the weight, the force, the normal force all act through that center of mass. And so then we have the friction force times R, counterclockwise is positive, equals J alpha. Alpha equals A times R if it's not slipping. So that we're assuming that it's not slipping. And so it says that A equals the friction force times R squared over J. And we have the friction force here. So that would be, again, I should call it A max. Now, we can go back here and plug in our A max. Plug in A and that give it the maximum value that we can. And so we plug this into here, and we can see we get lots of things simplify here. So, then use J as the uniform cylinders, 1/2 mr squared. So we wind up getting, after we do some algebra here, we get mg, okay, so this is the weight, times this factor here, 3 times the static, that should be static coefficient of friction, not kinetic. 3 times the static coefficient of friction times cosine of theta plus sine of theta. So that's kind of the reduced, you can think about it as, the weight factored by this. Plugging in all these values, we get 4,010 newtons. So we can pull on this thing with a force of 4,010 newtons. If we pulled on it with any more, then to keep it rolling without slipping, we'd have to have a greater friction force than our coefficient of friction can produce. So if we pull on it any more, then it would still roll, but it would also be slipping. Now, let's see here. Once we know this, we can figure out what A is, or we can actually just plug in the values here if we wanted to. And that is, again, with plugging in J, we get that A is 2 mu kg cosine of theta, and that is 1.88 meters per second squared. And now they ask us how long it takes. Well, the length, the distance that we're traveling is just, assuming we're starting from rest. So the distance we go is 1/2 AT squared. And so this is, what was it, 6 meters, and we know this, so we can solve for t, and that gives us about 2.5 seconds. So it takes us about 2.5 seconds to go this 6 meters, pulling it as hard as we can, but not allowing it to slip.